Jerry, you're live.
All right. Welcome everyone to the October 27th, 2002 meeting of the Annapolis Historic Preservation Commission. A quorum is present. The meeting shall come to order. The commission operates pursuant to the land use article of the annotated code of the state of Maryland. Local authority for the commission is derived from municipal code of the city of Annapolis, chapter 21, section 56. The purpose of the HPC is to preserve sites, structures, and districts of historic, archaeological, and architectural significance. All right, so that's the roll. That's the call to order. Roll call. Will Scott.
Here.
Bill Williams.
Here.
Bobby Collins.
Here.
Kim Finch.
Here.
Kevin Smith.
Here.
All right. Leslie Xavier checked in with me a little bit earlier, and she is occupied, so she can't be here tonight. So, all right. On our agenda tonight, we actually have just two pre-applications. The first is Fort King Charles Place. So Josie, if you could promote those who are associated with that application.
So we have Donald Booth here, and he has joined us.
This Halloween.
So Donald or Don, we don't see your video yet.
I see me. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
We can hear
Ready.
you.
Okay. I see me.
There you go.
Thank you. Maybe a few glitches. This will be my first Zoom on this computer, or
Okay.
ever, basically.
Take your time. But we can see you and we can hear you. We've had an opportunity to look at your the documents that have been uploaded, and pre-applications are a consideration given to applicants, but you should not assume that anything will be approved or disapproved by the commission in advance. Do you understand that?
Yeah, I understand that.
Okay.
I understand this is to be kind of like a work session, or
There you go. Thank you.
where you get to, make your points, and then later, whatever happens, I'm coming back, right?
Right, because this is just eventually it'll become an application.
Right.
Um,
And whatever changes need to be made, okay, they'll be made, but it'll basically be the same
Okay.
information.
So
With changes.
we've all seen. We have had an opportunity to look at the drawings. Do you want to share anything with us on the screen, or do you want us to just talk about what we've seen?
I'd like to talk, and I'd be happy to walk you through it. I made a few points this morning and wrote them down, and I would love to be able to pull things up, but that's a step that I'm going to have to learn for the next meeting, whenever that meeting is. But I can, I have the hard copies of the documents in front of me, so I can refer to them. But we'd be here all night if I were trying to pull them up. So sorry about that.
Okay.
But
There's no problem. Other commissioners, have you had a chance to look at the drawings that were uploaded to the drive? And do you have any comments? I mean, this is well, go ahead. If you would like to, first of all, number one, commissioners, have you been able to look at it?
Yeah.
Okay. Bobby,
Yes.
yeah. Kevin,
Looked at it.
Kim, yeah.
Yeah, I did
Hello?
as well.
Excuse me?
I was just saying, you had a chance to look at the drawings that were uploaded. So
Yes, I did. Mhm.
all right, cool. So would you like to summarize, Don, the change? It's a extension of it's a dormer extension. That's
I
the
think,
exterior. Go ahead.
Try this. Okay. Just learned this one. Okay, so I think the most important drawing off right at the start is HP2, which is what's proposed. HP1 shows the existing condition, which shows 3 rear elevations of 4 King Charles Place, 6 King Charles Place, and 8 King Charles Place. And essentially what we're doing at number 4 is trying to enlarge the 3rd floor. The attic right now is basically inaccessible or only accessible through a hatch, and make it a habitable space, very similar to what's already been done at these 2 other adjacent properties. And I think that's a fundamental drawing, because it shows that what we're doing is similar to what's already been done. Now, I have, okay, in the checklist, in the public hearing application, there's a description of the proposed work. And I think that, as an addendum page, I think that very clearly describes what's happening, but I would like to read a few points, if that's okay with you guys.
Of course.
About what 2 areas, the basic design and the context. And it's hard to know whether to start with one or the other, but I think I'm going to start with the context of the neighborhood. First of all, King Charles Place is a private street, and it's a cul-de-sac, even though it's a very popular shortcut. People and their dogs like to go through there.
It's a unique street in Annapolis. It is totally.
So these are some points. The addition, and I think the drawings make those clear, both the aerial perspectives and also the architectural drawings. The dormer and the balcony will not be visible from the front or from any public location. Almost.
And you have less of photographs, I think, in your application.
Yeah, almost invisible from any private places because of the dense trees that surround that property on 2 sides. Identical neighboring houses at 6 and 8 King Charles Place have similar rooftop additions with shed roof, as I said. And I mentioned the photos and aerial perspective of existing conditions. Point 3, similar neighboring houses across the street at 1, 3, and 5 King Charles Place have either old additions or original, I'm not sure, 2-story additions that basically had a shed roof on them as well. So the shed roof aspect is kind of on that street, very low pitch. When I say shed, very low pitch that then intersects into a conventional, steeper pitch roof. Adjacent neighbor, this is not really apropos, but I'm going to say it anyway, sorry. 131 has two old large shingle additions at the rear of what was a 1760s brick box. But since then additions kept getting added on and filled in. So just a point. The local area has several rooftop shed dormers, including entirely new 2022 story structure of 4 Acton Place that faces onto Shaw Street that goes down to the park. And a full width shed dormer at 8 Acton Place, which goes all the way across the front. It's original to the house. Also at 118 Charles Street front, which is very near the intersection where King Charles Place goes into Charles Street. There's a shed dormer, and then a recent structure, I say recent, it's already probably 10 years old, at 207 Duke of Gloucester Street rear, has 2 shed dormers that I actually see from my window, and that's the one that I think Pilly or someone did, or who knows when, 2009, 2010, something. So that's kind of I think the local context for shallow pitched roofs and shed type roofs. Okay, some design and technical points. This is almost a repeat of what I had in the application. The existing attic 3rd floor is only accessible by a small hatch, making it mainly non-functional. The dormer and the new stair to the 3rd floor support a master suite design and a 2nd floor with a family room and a proper bathroom and 2 large bedrooms with new closets and full bathroom. What do we got here? This is just, a repeat of the other. The shed dormer allows maximum 3rd floor space without breaking the roof line. The balcony is not above a habitable space, which it actually is at number 8. It's not a good idea. It's open decking, so water can go down to the yard. And finally, the dormer will be clad with what I say in the application is 18-inch perfection shingles, just standard shingles that'll either be, right now the house has the shingles at the 2nd floor are painted. We'll probably match those, but also if you use Cabot stain, which my neighbor has, it's pretty nice looking. It kind of pales it out. And that's more or less it. So I could go through the application, but I think it would be redundant. But I'm more than happy to answer any questions or, yeah.
All right. Well, thanks. The application's pretty completed at this point. It has aspects of changes to a roof shape, and I'll go ahead and lead the discussion a little bit from our guidelines in terms of this would qualify as an addition, and in terms of subordination, and that's B6, and then B8 has to do with roof shapes. And I think you're basically making the case that this is a roof shape that has been existing in the area of in the neighborhood. So that's kind of to shape the conversation here. John Tower, would you like to comment on the feasibility of this application?
I believe that it's a feasible application for a number of reasons. You mentioned B6. As an addition, it's a subordinate mass. Also, it doesn't have an effect on the streetscape. And as as the precedent is set within the neighborhood, it follows
Yeah.
that precedent. It does not establish a new precedent, it follows a precedent. Of all the things that I would say, and I hope this doesn't grind any gears, I would suggest possibly a differentiation of the siding material on the dormer to give a sense of progression, and to have it stand out at least sensitively, but differentiated from the rest of the house.
So you're saying instead of shingles, maybe something, a different
Right.
type of siding,
a different type of siding.
like lap.
But that's right. That's my only comment. I want to say that Mr. Booth, who I call Rennie, has been
Yeah.
in many times.
Anyone can call me Rennie.
Right. Has been in many times. I've worked with him on many occasions developing this. He has taken a patient approach, and I think developed something that is in keeping and congruous with the neighborhood and also meets our standards.
Cool. The significance of contributing, this building was in the 20s. These were built on this unique street in Annapolis. Is that right? When were these
Yeah.
buildings built?
These were built in 1921
Okay.
as a kind of a private development. And then they were platted when the estate broke up and sold. They were actually platted by McCrone in 1943.
Wow.
So they were platted well after they were actually built. And there's an old survey on there that shows what was built, but 4 of the houses are virtually identical.
Yeah.
Not including later work.
Yeah.
So
Well, they fall into the period of significance. And John, you're going to write the staff report eventually, but these would be considered contributing, I believe. So we would be looking, relatively strictly at them. They haven't changed much, and so there's a lot of. So I just wanted to put that out there on the record.
Yeah, this is a minor note, but I'm talking with the owners across the street from number 4, and they have it's come to the end of its useful life, but they have a textured metal roof on that house. Textured metal roof.
What is that?
It looked like cedar shingles, but it's metal. The sort of thing you might have seen on a little tavern or.
Interesting.
But I think it's original. I'm sorry to see it go. I begged them to try and figure out anything they could to keep it, but
pretty wild.
The leaks are louder than my persuasive voice.
All right. Other commissioners' thoughts on King Charles Place, feasibility wise?
Tim, I have a question.
Okay, John.
The side window shows it's going to be replaced. Is that necessary? Is that a contributing feature that's being removed potentially?
On which
On the 3rd level, there's a side window.
Oh, yeah.
I'm looking at page 21. Let's see. I'm looking at the aerial view, the existing and the proposed. On HP 1 and HP 2 is the drawing name. So Kevin, which window are you talking about?
It's on the 3rd level on the side. And on the one drawing, it's
going to be
double hung window.
HP5 probably, yeah.
And
Yes.
then it changes on the next window. And then on the detailed drawing, it calls it out as a replacement window.
me see, what drawing is that gonna be? That's gonna be,
We have it on elevation on HP 5.
yeah. I can tell you what I'm trying to do. I'm not exactly seeing that. Okay, on HP 5, there's a window that faces south, so that would be the southeast elevation. And I would like to enlarge that window. On the northwest elevation,
And you're on HP 5 at this point?
yeah, on HP 5, which is where the stair comes down, I would like to add a window at each landing. And the let's say the reference for that is that at number 8, King Charles Place, which faces the parking lot, municipal parking lot.
Mhm.
And
Yeah, it
is
looks like
shown
the
shown in
second
the
level
last
window-
photo. I think there are windows at the landings, and I think a window at a stair landing is just something that if it can be done, it should be done.
Yeah, it looks like you're removing that middle window both from the third and second level and replacing it with a larger window on the third and no window on the second.
Well, actually, HPXC shows the existing conditions.
I see. I'm having trouble following. I'm sorry, I might not be the only one. So now I'm going to HPXC.
Yeah, I'm lost.
It's
Yeah.
the
That's the
last,
last page of the plans.
yeah, the last page of the plans, which shows 2 drawings show existing, or actually three sheets show
Right. So it's
existing conditions. So those are the existing conditions.
so XC means existing.
Yeah, and
XA.
HP 5 shows what's
No.
what's proposed. And
So we have
there
to cycle back between XP5, which is proposed, and XPXC,
see, which is existing.
So Kevin's point is that there is a window being removed on which elevation?
Actually, there's no window being removed. On the southeast elevation, there's a window being enlarged at the attic, an existing window being enlarged. And then on
Cycling
the
back up.
northwest elevation, sorry guys, I'm adding 2 windows, 2 small windows. They're kind of in the number 8, they're like art glass windows. And I'd be okay with that personally. You know, or they're, you know, metal, a little bit decorative. They're just ways of getting light into that stair.
Quick question, if I may.
Yeah,
On sheet number HP4, you show the 2 windows, it's a section. You show the 2 windows you want to add, if I'm not mistaken,
Oh, okay.
on the bottom drawing.
right.
And I noticed it on the elevation too, the bottom sill of those windows aligns with the adjacent windows, which are at floor level. You said these windows were at landings and I'm trying to work this out because it looks like they're well
Oh,
above,
okay.
well above
So
them.
the section looking northwest. Yeah, they're not, okay. The up and the down will obviously have to be adjusted, but they are where the landing is. Put it that way.
They're vertically within the landing.
The stair has a landing. It's got a
Correct.
long run up, and then it's got a short run. It then has a landing, and then has a short run that turns into the thing. So those windows occur where the landing
Yeah, okay.
occurs.
I understand. So it's actually in line with the landing, but it's
Yeah.
not, but a person standing at the landing probably would not be able to look out.
No, they probably wouldn't, well, again,
What's
I'm
the impact
asking
on, what's the
I'm not
impact
gonna
on?
scale this, I'm not gonna scale this drawing, although I believe they're to
Well,
scale.
well,
What's
no,
the
no, no,
impact
no,
on the
no, I'm not asking
exterior,
you. What I'm looking at, I'm just looking at relative things within the drawing, like the door height, you drop it down. But anyway, I think what
Right.
I'm getting to is
Yeah.
on many historic houses that I'm familiar with, the windows at the landings are down to where the person at the landing will see out. And you see the stair reflected on the outside of the building. So these windows are this marker of a stair rising up within the building.
I would be perfectly okay with that. You know, if there were room, I'd love to put a seat at the landing, but this is pretty tight as it is. So
No.
the up and the down of the window,
And actually that goes to the other thing I'm seeing, at least on the inside of the house, which we have nothing to do with. So ignore me completely, is the window at the second floor landing looks like it's actually tight to the ceiling of your stair. So
same drawing, HP4.
on HP4, yeah. I
So
mean,
we are really focused on the northwest
Yeah.
elevation at the, just to help, I'm a
Yeah.
little, still trying to track here. We are focused
Right.
on the northwest elevation at this
Yeah.
point.
And this is the relationship to the northwest elevation is what I'm going for, is it seems like those windows want to be down lower and not align with the adjacent windows to be relevant to the historic nature of the design.
Yeah, I see what you're saying, especially on the second, the first landing.
Well, I
Right.
would say both of them.
Where the sills, on HP5, the sills line up, and they wouldn't probably do that.
No, it just, to me, and
No, I
someone,
get what you're saying.
someone tell me how far I'm out, but it just seems
No,
like
no,
these windows need to be down historically within the design. If they were put in a
Right.
building built at that time, they would be windows for the landing to either look out or maybe have a window seat, as you were saying. Someplace to take that stop and presence before you made the turn down the stair. As they are now, they're really clear stories.
Yeah, they're a little high. And probably I was thinking, well, I know what I was thinking. Okay, when you're walking before you start down the stair, you can see out. But they're more about light than seeing out. So to me, the up and the down can be totally adjusted to whatever is appropriate.
Is there any reference in the neighborhood for windows like this? I mean, this is a
Well,
design choice.
there is. There's the one at in that photo. It's the last photo of that huge packet. So it's number 25, I believe. That shows number 8 has. I mean, I kind of.
Well, I think
I
that,
want to describe it from that, you know, in a way.
And that one is aligned, you are correct.
yeah. So Kevin raises a good point that there are new windows being introduced to the facade, and are they, the
Yeah.
discussion we're having has to do with the placement of the window and the consistency with the design in the neighborhood. So you take, I guess you can take it on board that typically these windows, if they are in the stair hall, would be not
Down.
aligned with the other windows.
Right.
Is the one in the photo aligned with the stair? I'm curious about that because does appear to be aligned with the sill. of the window.
Which photo are you?
That was the last photo. It's on page 32.
Yeah.
Whoa.
I'd be interested to see your guys' pages. It's photo
Wow.
number 25 anyway. It's
Well,
the
I'm
last-
looking at the
window.
file, and the file has
Yeah.
59 sheets, and this is sheet 32.
Yeah, it's the last. It's the last.
Yeah, it's a
photo.
beautiful little window.
Yeah.
Tim,
Yeah.
Tim, point of
Yeah.
sort of
and it's
procedure.
got colored glass
go ahead,
around
Will.
it.
This is a great discussion, but I isn't the only question before us tonight whether this is a feasible application?
Yes, that's
Yes.
correct.
I think it's a very simple, straightforward application and entirely feasible. I've said my piece.
Okay.
Thank you, John. I'll shut up.
No,
It's an interesting discussion.
Yeah, as
No,
someone
it
who,
is. It's very interesting. And how do I resolve it so that I, don't come back 3 and 4 times?
we,
I
I
haven't
think
heard
Will's-
anything that would make me want you to come back again on this single point.
I-
That's
I think
just me.
No.
Will's point is right, and Bill's point is also good, that we would be happy to offer design comments
Yes,
that would make it more feasible.
Right.
there you go.
Does
but
John
it-
Tower do that? Or, how do I get those comments? 'Cause
Well,
I-
you're
I
here
want-
right now. This is how it
Okay.
Yeah.
proceeds. Yeah.
and
Fun.
from a review standpoint, I was flipping back and forth between perspectives and views and drawings, trying to figure out what matched up with what.
Yeah.
It's much easier for us to understand what you're trying to do if on the same page you have a drawing of the existing and a drawing of the proposed for the same side of the house, because
Yeah.
if we have southeast, 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 and then northwest, and it's, without belaboring the point, it's just, if you can make it as easy for us as possible to see what is currently there and what you are proposing, then, it makes it a lot easier for us to understand what we're looking at.
Yeah. So for an example, Bobby, you're exactly right. So if you look at the drawing, by the way, I love hand drawn drawings. HP1 and HP2, we can see a lot, but then when you go on to the elevations, we kind of get lost.
Right.
Right. I would, that just makes a different sheet. It's
Yeah.
where you put the existing and the proposed right next to each other. And that's
Exactly. All we're asking, I
very
think, Bobby's
feasible
asking.
to do,
Correct.
that, in the old days, that was literally cut and paste. Not so good.
Exactly.
Time flies.
I think to bring that, the aerial views are really, really helpful, but I think that we've started focusing on the view that's on the other side of the aerial,
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So that-
which is just the nature of this particular project. But I think from a design, you've heard some comments, I think, on the design of the windows, and Kevin raised a good point. There are considerable difference in windows on one facade.
The photo, if you look at I was actually mulling this today, not that it's new to me, but these 4 houses, 4, 6, 8, and 7,
Mhm.
have 2 kinds of windows. For example, where I'm sitting right now, it's kind of a sunroom, and they've got windows that open, and it's then the rest of the windows are double hungs.
Right.
But so you get these 2 different kinds of windows that have very different shapes. They're rectangular of both, and different sill heights, and those crop up in all of these. So
Yeah.
You can. Personally, I will be more than happy to drop the windows, for example, in the stair. What is important to me is that I can have the windows or get the windows.
Right.
I think light is really, and the western sun comes all the way around, so you can get that western light on these sides.
Yeah,
But
I
anyway.
think that's a design choice on your point. The windows, as long as they are in scale and of the correct materials, and are relatively consistent with the neighbors and this building, which is contributing, it's kind of your choice.
And
I
to
think
John's point, which I thought was is a very valid point, and I like it as well. The ground floor of all these houses is stucco. The second floor
Right.
is
Okay,
where the
great.
shingles prop up. And then to me, it makes sense. I'm not sure I would do stucco on the dormer, but
No, I
it's
think that's,
certainly
that's a valid-
possible. And boarding would be also, and there you have to look at it because you don't want it to look like too much is going on.
well, it should be
Visible.
differentiated. It should be,
Yeah,
it should read as
exactly.
differentiated and not, it should read as relative, as new and not the same.
Right.
I tried, so the first floor is stucco, the second floor is shingle.
Yes. For
So
those
differentiating
four.
on the sides of the dormer would be important.
Yeah.
You could choose boarding or stucco. I'm not sure it makes sense.
All right.
I would look in the neighborhood personally. I would look and see what the others have done. And
On the shingles, you are looking at cut shingles, if I saw. Is the, are the existing shingles cut or are they split?
Honestly, I don't know. They're painted and they've probably been painted about 5 times.
They're not split.
They're
Bill.
not
They're
split.
not.
can't tell.
They're-
I guess what I'm getting at is if he used a split shingle where the texturing is different and maybe a wider shingle or a narrower shingle, would
Yeah,
that be enough to
different
differentiate?
scale. Yeah.
That's a good point.
So he still has a shingle
Or a different lap.
Yeah.
or a different lap pattern? Maybe it's a
Yeah.
random.
So
instead of-
differentiate random. Yeah, differentiation is important. Old versus new.
So you're still getting your shingles and you're not having to deal with stucco way up there.
Yeah, I'm not sure stucco makes sense.
So-
Well, the
or something
stucco,
else.
I think wouldn't quite make it, but I mean, even okay, so there are some pattern shingles. There are quite a few mansard buildings around here, and many of those actually have a pattern shingle, not just a fish scale or what have you, but
Mhm.
I'd be happy to look at those too.
Yeah.
I like
Well,
all of them.
So differentiation would be the word that we would be
The
looking
key.
at.
Yeah. I might-
It obviously is not going to just, it's obviously a new
Yeah.
feature on the building. So, okay. And I think there's lots of detail in terms of the materials in the windows, which is important. That's already in this application. So any other thoughts, comments?
So I just have a question. I could follow up with you, Rennie, but why is widening the third floor, let's see, southeast window important? Because you've got all the good light coming in your new windows.
The reason I'm doing that is
Can you,
because
to help us, can you, John, which sheet are you looking at? Because
Oh,
I'm
this is
scrolling.
on HP 5.
Yeah,
Sorry.
upper left.
And this was Kevin's point. I think it's a good point. So
HP
there has to
5.
be, there has to be a compelling reason to change an original window.
HP
Because I'm adding a window seat there. That's the only reason.
So southeast HP 5. I'm still getting there. Sorry.
Yeah, it's upper left corner of the page.
If you're looking at the file, it's page 43.
Gonna come down and get John to.
So I'm going to look at HP 5, and then I have to go to HP.
What I did there is I
Oh, it's
copied the shape and the size, basically, of the windows that are in the sunroom, which are above the porch. So there's a double hung there right now with a double hung shape. And I wanted it wider because I put in a window seat there. And so I took the
On the
shape.
interior.
Yeah, I put the shape of the.
It's a nice feature, but maybe you and I could work on an alternative to maintain
the
the existing window and
Yeah.
and figure out side lights or something that don't create a false sense of history, but give you the wider window that you're interested in.
Or, I mean, since I've got a window there, I can keep a window there. And to me, that's more important than, okay, it's a little bit wider. That's not.
If you're replacing the historic window with a new window, we would have an issue.
Right. Well,
Oh,
I'll have to crawl up there. That window it used to have a fan in it. I'll put it that way.
all right.
But obviously it didn't have a fan in it in 1921. That's for sure.
But we could take a look at that. That's
Okay.
just that's one element of a larger project.
Yeah.
All right.
Very much so. Okay.
So I'll try to summarize. On that particular issue, there's one window that replacing an existing window with a larger window is something that is still under discussion. But the addition of the dormer itself appears feasible with guidelines for B6 additions and B8 roof shapes. That's about it.
Great. So my next step is to get together with John again and go over all these issues. Is that right?
Yes, I think the application looks very close to complete. The only issue I think we have is this one window.
And the up and down of the
And
window.
your choice, right? Your choice to take on board our advice in terms of the placement of the windows on the facade lining up with the stairwells. Yes.
And the siding and the actual siding.
Thank you again. Yes. And the siding differentiation.
I'm sure we can agree on that though, because there are a lot of options
Yeah, there are a lot of options.
that are, in a family of options.
Yeah, your choice would be different types of shingles. I think the general sense was that stucco wouldn't make sense, but different shingles or different siding on the facades of the addition of the new dormer.
I will do some drawings because personally I'd be okay with boarding and I'd be very okay with a different shingle.
Okay. All right. Well, that would be the next step then.
Okay, good. Great. Awesome.
Right. Any other comments from commissioners? Have we summarized it okay? When I do this, I'll sequence it a little better when I write it up.
One more comment, but it has nothing to do with what you're going to write up, Tim. Those drawings are great. I haven't seen hand drawings.
I love hand drawings.
I started doing hand drawings and I missed it so much.
Yeah.
Bringing back both nightmares and dreams.
I started doing computer drawings. I'm like, oh my goodness.
No, we don't see these types of drawings often. So.
Well, unfortunately, people don't know how to use a pencil anymore, much less sharpen it.
I want to show you my desk, but I'm not going to turn my computer. It'll just be with my pencil.
So my desk is still sitting right behind where I'm sitting right now. I don't think it's had a drawing on it for 25 years. This is going south real quick.
No, it's cool. All right.
Thank you.
Make you ready. Okay. Next, I think is on the agenda.
So I get to go away now, right?
You can hang out if you'd like. Hear our next discussion about another roof dormer. So I think it's 5 Wagner Street, right?
4.
4.
Done with you.
I never get the exact
Sorry,
number.
I got that wrong
3.
again. 3, damn it. Oops, I said damn it.
Oh, you
Twice.
did. I usually get the street correct. Thanks. And so Dan has joined us. Hi, Dan.
Hello.
Hey, Dan.
Hi,
Hello.
John and Sandy.
Good evening. How are you?
Great. Welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome back.
Thanks.
So Dan, do you have drawings you'd like to present? I think we've seen multiple versions, which is great. This design is progressing based on our comments, and I really appreciate that. So this is a pre-application, as you know. So it's provided as a accommodation to the applicant, and anything we say tonight shouldn't be assumed to be approval or disapproval. Do you acknowledge?
I acknowledge.
I guess the lawyers always tell me I'm supposed to say that. So there we go. So do you want to present your next version for us, and we can provide you with feedback?
I will attempt to do that. Can you?
Yep.
You now see the aerial view?
We can. And you
Okay.
can just go ahead and focus on the changes from the last time. which
Yeah, I
think
just wanted to
was
make sure you were seeing.
2 or 3. Yep.
Just quickly on the site plan, the only real difference there is we've got 120 square feet of pervious garden, since there was discussion about the pervious pavers and that it may have no longer be an option. So this will just be the space, the 120 square feet created of impervious created by the addition will be dealt with by removing a concrete walk and by removing flagstone patio to create a garden.
Mhm.
Issues that we talked about before, and I'll attempt to enlarge this, move it around. In this iteration of the design, the addition has gotten a pitched roof. The flat roof was problematic. The aesthetics of a pitched roof are, I think, much better. It's a shallow pitched roof. Below that, we've done generally cosmetic moves to give substance to everything below the addition, beef things up, add columns, pilasters, trim, and a small 6-foot deep deck. All of those items give bulk, substance, create a base so that this no longer looks like a box on posts. It looks like an addition that's got a place to sit, something substantial to sit on was the intent there. The other thing we talked about at length was the dormer.
Mhm.
We still need to provide a way to get light and air up to the attic space. And this shed dormer really is the only avenue that I see for doing that without having to create an addition up here. You know, if we want to get that window in a wall, it would require that a much larger and much more obtrusive, essentially addition type of dormer. And we don't want to do that. So
Right.
If there's going to be this dormer, I think needs to be a shed dormer to mimic this shed dormer. It's been pared down in terms of, it's got a case, it'll have a casement window to differentiate it from other parts of the building. It will have, I've shown it as having no corner boards, no corner posts. So it's more modern, more spare, and I don't think anybody would fail to differentiate it from the original construction. Here's another view of what's being proposed at this time. The elevations. These are the existing, so a little bit of discussion of the materials. Lap cedar siding on the addition to mimic the lap cedar siding on previous additions. This larger existing dormer is still being extended, but not as far. We're leaving plenty of room to be able to access the far wall for maintenance. And I think it removes issues of fire separation from the neighbor, visual separation from the neighbor. I think that this is all the extension that we need, so we'll leave it at that. In terms of being able to see the addition from the street, you've seen a couple of views before. These are two views from in front of 3 Wagner. And in the winter time, you'll get glimpses of the addition from this point of view. In the summertime, you really don't because of leaves. The most significant view of this project will be from Hanover Street. As you go down the hill to the corner of Hanover and Wagner and turn the corner, you could look back and this is what you see now. Let me enlarge this. So this is that glimpse of the back of the building, the only significant view of it from the public way. And this is the addition superimposed into that photo.
That's an amazing drawing or image.
Thank you. Computers make it easy. And I believe that's the last of the changes in the presentation. There are no views possible from College Avenue. And in terms of private views, neighbors, obviously number 4, the other half of the duplex. And from number 5 Wagner Street, if you walk over to the fence between number 4 and number 5 and part some shrubs, you'll see the addition. So essentially from a public way, this is the view opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
And that's my presentation.
All right. So to organize the conversation a little bit, there's the roof dormers on the 3rd floor, which have progressed over time to be less, more subordinate and separated. And the addition has now a gable or a gable roof instead of a flat roof, which is a change, which is fine. And there's an addition of the a deck and stairs down to the yard. So does that summarize those 3 things? And I think the materials that you've talked about have not changed. So those are 3 topics to talk about. John, do you have any comments or thoughts before we have any commissioners?
Well, I work with Dan quite a bit to try to create something that was differentiated from the original structure and noticeably so. And I think Dan did a good job with reducing the size, the prominence of the dormers on the roof. Actually seem to balance with respect to the neighbors. A lot of emphasis on the differentiation of the single window dormer, which actually looks fairly modern. And I think that this works for the same reasons that the King Charles Place application works or project works. But if this were more visible from a public way, it might be more difficult to approve. Its overall effect on the historic fabric is minimal, and the forms here are traditional but differentiated from the 1920s architecture. So I think that I consider this feasible.
Okay. And would when you write your staff report, would you say this building is contributing, or has it?
I think absolutely it's
Yeah. All right. Okay. I just want to make sure.
Yeah.
And it's in the neighboring buildings have also been added on to in similar fashions over the decades.
I don't know how much the house that is down the hill from this has had additions, but if you've ever been inside that one, it has so many quirky levels.
Nooks and crannies, yeah.
Yeah, it's that's a wild little house. Anyway, no, the other houses on the street have had additions up to the earlier 19th century houses. There's 3 of them that are by the corner of King George Street.
Yeah, it's a really eclectic grouping of buildings. Okay, other commissioners' thoughts on feasibility or? Subordination, roof shapes, differentiation?
All good.
All good? Kevin, Kim, Bill?
No comment.
All right. Well, I might as well cut to the chase. I think this application, we've seen it multiple times and it's continuing to progress to become more and more consistent, I believe, with the guidelines having to do with subordination and roof shapes and differentiation of materials. The scale continues to be in keeping with, it's obviously an addition and obviously a modern or a current edition. So therefore, I think we believe consistently among us commissioners feel it's feasible.
Tim?
Yeah.
I'd just like to say that I very much like the way the applicant has treated the final proposal for the gable roof. It really does make it seem more organic and seems like it's better supported, more substantial and all of that. So that's a nice design change, I think.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would agree. It actually is, from a design point of view, it looks great. It looks, I don't know, the scale is important, and the scale seems to have improved with every single design. I don't necessarily see it in all. So the window, the new windows specifications, I don't see them necessarily. If you've got all the specs for all the windows, only one of them doesn't. There's one window in the dormer that does not have divided lights, and that is to indicate that it's a modern addition, and it's not out of scale. But in the final application, window specs would be needed. So, and we also, again, in summary, there was a change to the site plan as well that you mentioned at the outset, Dan, that I think is consistent with our previous discussions. And so that's another point. I'm going to put it in the summary. And the other point that had come up in prior discussions was the need for other permits regarding party walls with the dormer on the house adjacent. And now that's been removed because you've separated that dormer. So that has removed one of the issues we had talked about previously. I would make one other comment, that if public comment could be made by the neighbor, that would always strengthen the application. The building, the party wall, the duplex, the neighbor would strengthen the application.
Okay,
But generally, the application is feasible from the guidelines point of view.
very good. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks for
Look
working.
forward to a full
Yeah.
application. Any other commissioners, anything else? Did I miss anything? All right. Hearing no motion in the room. All right. That's all we have on the formal agenda. Any other business? I have two things to mention, but anything else from other commissioners?
No.
No, sir.
Okay. One thing to mention, that our guidelines are continually interesting for us to challenge. And I did some follow-up work in terms of how we might approach updating our guidelines. We have worked around the edges on our guidelines, but over the years, we've always had discussions that maybe we need a fairly major review. There is funding available. The typical way this is done is you hire an outside consultant to work through a process, including the public, to revise our existing guidelines. There are funds available and we can apply for them from MHT. So I'll get the ball rolling to figure out what that grant looks like. But I would hope that you would all agree that it's time to do that. We've been working on pieces of it, but I'm happy to start the ball rolling if you all agree I should, because it's going to be, I'm seeing a thumbs up from Bill. I'm just talking about the guidelines at this point, because our guidelines are authorized by the code, and the city code. So at this point, I'm just talking about the guidelines. If we talk about code, we've got a different kettle of fish. So I mean, if you would like me to do that, I will look at the process, and John and I can work together to figure out how to do that.
Yeah, let's
Yeah.
do it.
All right,
Yeah.
let's do it. As an example, in the short term, John has brought up several times to me that the current code around utilities and antennas in the historic district is increasingly a problem. So I might be wanting to propose that we make some short-term changes to guidelines regarding utilities. So 2 tracks here, little specific things like we did with outdoor furniture. And this one would be just focused on utilities, because in the short term, like in the next 6 months, we need maybe to strengthen those. I would bet the whole guideline thing might take 18 months to maybe even 2 years, because there's going to be need for public input and all those things. So 2 tracks. One is short-term proposal on utilities. that we can start talking about maybe in the next 2 to 3 months. So those are the two things I wanted to bring up.
I think the focus on utilities is good.
Yeah, we did anticipate that the guidelines are just pretty much practically silent on it.
Are there any other emergency issues that we need to have someone move forward and pull together information on?
Good question. Anyone?
Let me think about that.
Well, I mean, we have, done a lot of work on outdoor dining at this point, but there's been a lot more experience in other places. Well, there's been other experience in the state,
Well, my experience is that anything that resembles approval for a sidewalk cafe will be exploited. Whether there's actually approval for it or not, because there are sidewalk cafes that have no approval. So one of the things that I mentioned to Tim was, and I do this reluctantly, but I do it in the quest for greater compliance, to consider.
It's not about you, John. I know.
No, it's not. It's definitely not about me. It never is. This is about the historic district. So it's the possibility of approving composite materials for tabletops and seats and seat backs.
Yeah.
And the reason I say it is because they're out there, they're durable, and I mean, I do not want to open a door here that PVC $5 get them now chairs is going to fill, because that would really make my life bad. However, they don't meet fire code, and we could test them with just a Bic lighter. Anyway, I'm glad you like that.
So I guess what you're
I
raising-
do. Call me so I can bring my camera.
Well, John,
Bring the fire department.
John, basically, I'm saying that I think, like, going over the last 5, way before the pandemic, we were having constant utility issues that were emergencies, and you weren't. I think Roberta, I'm sorry,
Mhm.
Roberta wasn't. Yeah, Roberta was constantly getting sideswiped by those, and then the pandemic took over our lives. But anyway,
Yeah.
but I think the utilities is very important. But I think reviewing what has happened with regard to the sidewalk cafes and all these things, and looking for consistency in other areas of the state would be a really good effort.
So I guess what I'm hearing you say, Kim, is that maybe there's another thing we need to tweak, and that might be our outdoor furniture guidelines. And John is saying the same thing. Maybe we need to look at our words and tweak them a little bit.
Well, I think we were moving out of an emergency situation to a
Completely.
semi-permanent situation, and so it's an evolving. That's an evolving characteristic. We hadn't fully addressed utilities yet.
Yeah.
Because that was coming up pretty rapidly.
Yeah. The furniture has to do with the emergency reaction that we did. The utilities is a longer scope, had nothing to do with the pandemic. Well, we talked about the material wording that we put in our guidelines that we approved, so we can take a look at those as well. And we're looking for consistency and quality. And it's really hard when you write the word. You can't write a subjective thing like the PVC material must be, the composite material, it must be of high quality. That's not something we can write. We have to write it. We have to give examples, and this is approvable. And we did that. We gave examples that were approvable and not approvable as guidelines. So I think we can go back to that and look, maybe some examples, approvable and not approvable. So maybe if we want to say PVC is on the slats or in the backs and the tabletops, give examples. Yeah, well,
One thing I would throw into this conversation, which I think is very necessary to have the conversation, is now we are moving, as Kim said, away from an emergency situation to what seems to be the standard for the future. So I would be more rigorous about what kind of materials are permitted. And I would phrase it to the business owners who might resist. Now we're talking about something that you'll potentially be able to do in perpetuity, or at least as long as you own your restaurant. So making a bigger investment makes sense financially, or makes more sense financially. You have a longer time to get a return on your investment, but you're really investing in the future of the community and what it'll look like when it's not an emergency, when we're not trying to, help you survive. We're trying to help us all thrive, and better materials will do that better, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, I'm not inclined to bend unless John can come up and say, this is the best thing since sliced bread. And I could not tell the difference myself that it's a man-made material. And I'm being serious there.
No, I understand what you're saying.
Slip itself.
Yeah, rigorous is a good word. I like that.
Yeah.
So there's some wording changes. We responded, I think, appropriately. And I think for the most part, the look of the historic district in these outdoor gardens, outdoor cafes is okay. Is better than it started.
Yeah,
We're on the right.
that's for sure.
So now we're saying
We're having trouble getting that out, Sam.
in perpetuity, we probably want to make sure that there's guardrails are specific, a little more narrow.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I'll take that on board and maybe tweak our guidelines in that and send it out to all of you. Okay. One more thing, we have not heard any. I did draft some comments about changes of height districts for any particular project that might come up. And there's not any new information on that regard. This wasn't on the city council agenda this week in terms of changing a height district for the properties along Dock Street. And John, I think you've not been involved. You told me you weren't involved in a specific meeting. So that letter that I drafted from the commission to the city council has not gone out yet. I think we've made our points to at least to Ellie, our alderwoman, and to the mayor. And at this point, we're just waiting to see the response. So there's no next steps there. And I would also prompt in the next, we're going to go, we don't have a meeting. We only have 2 more meetings this year. And I would like to understand any more progress on the city dock designs, which I don't know whether there have been any additional. I saw one new drawing that was a little different in terms of the design. So I'd be curious, John, if you have been involved in any more city dock meetings in terms of their specifics, in terms of barriers. Specifically, the thing I saw, the barrier design was different than the last time we saw.
No new
flip-up barrier
developments.
was different.
No
new
no.
meetings.
Yeah.
So,
No.
So reaching out again to them, say we're willing to talk to them at any time to review the newer designs, because it's been a few months. They're going through a process of updating their designs, getting more detailed so they can go to get cost estimates. And I think some of the design concepts are more expensive or less expensive. So I think they might be talking about costs a little more now. And so we'd be willing to review, I think, as a commission, speaking for the commission, anytime to see if what we would consider their designs as being feasible from our point of view, from a guidelines point of view. So we'll continue asking them to come to us to talk. Okay, that was all for my additional. Thanks for listening to all that. But those are the things that go. Those are the things that are going on as we talk to every meeting. Any other business?
Well, I've got a few things.
Oh, gosh.
Uh-oh.
This isn't going to take long, but in the last week, I have encountered 3 unapproved projects, and I am littering Duke of Gloucester Street with stop work orders.
Oh no!
At this point, yes, and of course, everyone who gets one is frantic, except for one. I was leaving on Friday, and as some of you know, I tend to leave fairly late. The sun had gone down, and a rooftop deck was being worked on Duke of Gloucester Street, right by the Maryland Inn. And I think I said stop work in a way that got the attention of the people who were doing the work. Eventually talked my way in, took some pictures. The first floor Airbnb tenant came out in his underwear and asked me what was going on. It was one of those things where I couldn't believe that I had to create a stop work order for Friday night at, I guess it was 8 o'clock. And it was a rebuild of an existing rooftop deck, but it was unapproved and they're working after dark. There's no building permit. And I'm encountering this frequently. So I go around and I'm stopping work. So I'm just letting you know, it's kind of mind blowing because I think I have 4 of them on that stretch from Church Circle to Conduit Street, on both sides of the street. And anyway, so that's one thing. I just every once in a while I think, really? Come on, you guys.
Thanks for sharing. So what do you think is going on? Are people not thinking they can go ahead and start work without permits?
Well, we had the age of Aquarius, but now we have the age of Narcissus. I think people are really self-involved and they just might think they can get away with it.
I have 3 words for you that I think are at least somewhat of an explanation. Rule of law.
Yeah.
How many people today do not seem to think the law applies to them?
Well,
Well,
here we are
when my
on the
speedometer
forefront
hits
of-
80, I know it doesn't apply to me.
Well, there you go.
So we're just experiencing a national trend.
Yeah, I really think that's part of it. People just think, hey, that stuff's for other people.
Well, that's
Thank God we have people like John who notice.
Yeah.
But
And you have authority, John. We can't, as commissioners, go out and or the public, anyone, to tell somebody to stop it.
Well, there are good things happening too.
There are.
There are many good things happening also, and so that's one thing. Let's see. I know it's minor, but I've started posting something on a weekly basis in Friends of Annapolis about, where is this in the historic district?
Oh.
Yeah,
I like it.
cool.
People are guessing. Well, both of you,
I
Jim
did.
and Will, you both guessed too. Yes. Well, this week I have a spooky one up, but let's see what else.
Good. I think, John, that's really important. Thank you for doing that.
Hearts,
I think it's
hearts
very
and
worthwhile.
minds, hearts and minds. I want
There you go.
people to remember their emotional attachment to these incredible streets and the buildings on them. I mean, there is an emotional attachment to them.
And we need
there.
we need this public support as we go forward.
So just a minor thing. And then Tim, you were probably going to bring it up, but we don't have a public hearing application
For November.
for November. Not one. There are pending things, but we don't actually have one. So I don't know if anyone's going to try to, I was thinking that the Burtis House was going to come in, but they haven't signaled yes or no for the November.
Pre-app.
Yeah, as a pre-app for the November meeting as a pre-app.
And
So-
it is election day. So I already talked to Bobby. I'm an election judge, or I will be an election judge. So if we do have a meeting, Bobby has graciously agreed to, if we have a meeting, to chair the meeting. So we'll check on that.
So those were my announcements.
Sounds good.
Yeah, Will?
I have a quick personal one. If it's out of order, please stop me. I have a show of my photographs at 49 West. It's open until the end of November.
Oh,
Hope you
that's
all
right.
have a chance to stop by and look at it.
Thanks.
Yeah,
That
I'm
is
looking
of
forward to
historic
it.
Note.
What?
I said that is of historic note,
Yes, there are historic structures in some of the photographs.
therefore it fits.
There you go.
Thank you, Bill.
Well, actually, I just have one thing, as we're all,
You just hit mute, Kim.
Yep, you muted yourself.
Kim,
Hate when that happens, right?
I know. She
what's
won't-
happening?
There.
There you go. You're back.
Yeah, I mean, last Friday, I had such an Annapolis moment that I went to a funeral of someone who had died, and with many friends, and we were walking down the streets of Annapolis towards St. Anne's Cemetery, and we're all there at the cemetery. It was a beautiful day last Friday. I don't know if you remember, it was really clear and blue, and we were, old friends walking down the Annapolis streets to St. Anne's Cemetery. Had a lovely ceremony. There's some really nice descriptive plaques in the cemetery, about the history of the cemetery and things like that. And we were actually able to walk over to other graves of other parents of people I was with. And it was just one of those Annapolis moments that reminds you of why these things blended together in downtown. Is just lovely. And just want to say, I haven't done that very frequently lately, and I don't want to do it any more frequently, really. But except I do want to meet up with my friends.
Yeah.
But I would say that some of the wonderful things that happened to you just as part of your life living in Annapolis, and sharing these same historic spaces are really lovely moments that you can treasure.
Well, thanks. Yeah, it kind of raises another, I think many of you know that I'm involved with the heritage area, Chesapeake Crossroads Heritage Area. And we're going through a planning process. And the concept of designation of places is is coming up. And the role maybe of the city or Historic Annapolis of designating places outside the historic district is on our radar. I've always felt that I've kept I felt we have enough work to do. We are not interested. We're interested in supporting all of that, but in John's office, they have the opportunity perhaps to designate spaces, and cemeteries come up all the time. I mean, that what Kim just mentioned, that cemetery is in the historic district, but Brewer Hill, for instance, is not. So it's another topic that we could, as a commission, if we have the bandwidth, choose with the Heritage Commission to kind of merge and do some work in the future. But I think right now, I'd like to focus on guidelines, blocking and tackling with the.
Well, I can let you do that, Tim. I just thought that reminded me about why to be involved in the historic preservation district and heritage overall is very
Exactly.
important.
And we would love to be able to fund another person in John's office that could expand the concept of preservation beyond our nationally designated district. But right now, that's where we are. Unless any of you want to volunteer.
Maybe when I retired, Tim.
Yeah, I don't have an excuse. I'm already retired.
Okay.
Okay, any other business?
No.
All right. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
All
Thank
right.
you
We may
all.
see you in a
Thanks,
week and a
Tim.
half. We may not, but take care, everybody.
All right,
Bye-bye.
take care.
And by the way,
Bye.
go